2, 1, we're on. Hello everyone, welcome to a new interview of the Marine Talks. Today I'm sitting next to, it's my privilege to be sitting next to Jase Finlay. In the Canary Islands, we all grew up watching his videos bodyboarding, and he needs no introduction in the surfing and bodyboarding world. Hi Jase, how are you?
Yeah, good mate. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for having me also here at your place, your beautiful place.
Yeah.
We're somewhere down the coast in New South Wales, South Coast. And well, we're going to ask Jase, I am going to ask Jase a few questions regarding his job, his profession. He's an oyster farmer. So yeah, it's going to be a promising interview and I hope you all like it.
All right.
Beautiful.
Let's do it.
Let's start with the first question, Jase.
Yeah.
Why and when did you sort of decide to change your lifestyle regarding being a professional bodyboarder to really getting and have the focus on oyster farming?
There was a lot of luck involved. Bodyboarding doesn't have a huge longevity. I always knew I would have to have another career after the sport. I trained as a teacher.
All right.
And it was really by chance that the opportunity came to get into the oyster farming world through my brother-in-law.
All right.
And yeah, once I stepped on that boat and went up the river for the first time, I was sold. Like it was kind of like, I just love the outdoors. I love being a part of nature, and for that to be part of my job, it just like clicked instantly. Yeah. Right. So it was, the bodyboarding world was kind of coming at a funny point where there were only a few guys earning enough to make it their full-time living. So I kind of made the choice, let's find what I'm going to do next.
Yeah.
I tried teaching for a little bit while still doing part-time bodyboarding.
Yeah.
And the oyster farm came along with my brother-in-law and I just jumped on board.
There you go.
And yeah, that's 6 years ago, so I'm still pretty fresh.
All right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's already solid 6 years.
Yeah.
And more to come, I guess.
Yeah, lifetime, yeah.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
There you go. So, Jase, explain us briefly, you don't have to go too much into detail, but what kind of oysters, what species do you farm? Farm.
Yep.
And what would be the 3 or 4 or 5 basic steps so that people can really understand?
Yep.
Because, we many times know about oyster farming, but we don't per se know the whole process or the whole work involved, right?
Yeah, and it's really cool actually taking people to the farm, because when you see an oyster on a plate, you don't realise how much work goes into that. So basically it's a 3-year process. We farm Sydney rock oysters mostly, which are native to this area, New South Wales. Nowhere else in the world. We also farm Pacific oysters, which are a Japanese oyster, but bred in hatcheries to be farmed on our coastline as well. A 3-year process which is totally natural, really. So the oysters will naturally spawn in the river at a certain time of the year and land on our infrastructure, little microscopic larvae. Once they grow to a certain size, a couple of mil, they'll be taken off those structures. Millions will land on the rocks and grow on the rocks naturally. So they stay there, but we'll take them off our little structure and put them into like a floating basket. And for the next 3 years, it's basically a rotation of once those oysters start growing and filling up their space of the basket, they'll be brought into the shed, graded into their size group, and taken back out to a different part of the river or in a different system depending on what they need.
Is that process fast? So once you've sort of sorted them out, do you have to act quickly and put them again? Or
no, Sydney rocks are really hearty and are strong at staying out of the water.
Okay.
So we actually would try and keep them out of the water for a week.
All right.
It kills off any barnacle or cungy or anything else trying to grow on the oyster, so you dry them out, and that in turn strengthens their muscle, so that at the end of their journey, when they're going to a restaurant, they've got a really strong muscle that holds clothes for up to 3 weeks. They can stay alive.
All right, fair enough.
And the restaurant can open them over that time.
All right, there you go.
So 3 year journey, and about every 4 months they'll come through the shed and brought to another place.
All right. So roughly, what would be the difference? As you said, some of that spat, you managed to sort of collect it and grow it on your own devices. You've got it also being growing wild in the wildness. What would be what would be the main difference between having it farmed and controlled somehow, or just wild caught oysters? Is there any difference, or?
Yeah, so a wild oyster, it's fixed on a certain point for its life. So as soon as it lands and attaches its foot when it's microscopic, that's it for the rest of its life. And over the years, other oysters will land on top of it and smother it, and it builds up these oyster reefs.
Yeah.
If we can get them into our systems when they're really small, we can start shaping them instantly. So you can have a 5 mil oyster that begins to be shaped so that in 3 years' time, it's a really deep, uniform, beautiful oyster with a lot of meat inside. When they're on the rocks, they're really gnarly and they can grow any way they want. And so the meat content isn't too large in those.
All right.
So it's really about getting as much meat as possible in there and having them a beautiful uniform shape. But they're doing the same thing. The natural ones versus the ones in our baskets are feeding on the same food. They're spawning or releasing their eggs at the same time through the year. They're just kind of a part of the ecosystem.
That's very interesting. So you said you've got them, the oysters that you guys grow. What's the name? Are the
Sydney Rock Oysters?
Sydney Rock Oysters, they are up the river?
Yep.
Is that a mixture between, like, is it like brackish water? Yeah, parts like salt and fresh water?
Yep.
All right.
So they do need a mix. We have leases we're in the Clyde River, Batemans Bay.
Yeah.
We have leases really close to the opening.
Yeah.
And also about 4 kilometres up the river.
Oh, there you go.
And we have several leases spread out. And different areas kind of have different attributes that can help the oyster at a different stage of life. But that mix of ocean food source and then river and land food source, Sydney Rock Oysters love that. Yeah.
Super interesting. What would be the main threat for you guys growing the oysters? What would be something that, as a farmer, you really have to look closely?
Long term or short term?
Both.
So short term, there's predators. It's their own little ecosystem, and there's mudworm, flatworm, barnacle, kunji.
Yeah.
So oysters naturally grow on this intertidal line on the edge of the banks, and that's kind of their safest zone. Mussels, barnacle grow at different heights.
Yeah.
But there are predators that can get them. So basically, we're trying to, in some ways, replicate a natural way of growing, but protect them to ensure more of them last to mature age.
Yeah.
It's really just about handling them all the time and keeping an eye on them and keeping them clean and having those drying sessions so that there's no other predators taking over them. Yeah.
All right. And on the long term?
Global warming, I guess. Yeah.
Of course.
Ocean acidification, or on the south coast, if the temperature warms, we could be okay compared to a lot of guys up the north coast. But that sea level rising and the acidification.
Ocean acidification.
Really sure.
All right.
Yeah.
So, how does back to bodyboarding and farming, of course?
Yep.
How does a day in your life as an oyster farmer look like?
Yep.
And what would it be when you were just full on bodyboarding?
Yeah. So,
explain us that, because that's, I think, very interesting to know, especially for all the people that already know Jase and charging. So, how is that different? Yeah,
tried to, as a family. So our business our business is owned by us 3 brother-in-laws.
All right.
So us boys are married to three sisters.
Yeah.
And we have a strong ethos for family first. And Oyster Life is about, we want the business to work for us so we can enjoy our time with our family.
Yeah.
So that's kind of been a constant through bodyboarding and the oyster farm. So in saying that, we work a 4-day week.
Yeah.
To ensure our wives can still have a career and we can have that extra day with our kids.
Yeah.
So we just overlap days. We work set hours, 7:30 till 3:30, which if you're an oyster farmer, you're really reliant on the tides.
Yeah, of course.
So most guys would work total non-structured hours to work best with the tides, but we want our families to know this is when we leave, this is when we get home, so we can have a normal family life.
Yeah.
Bodyboarding was probably not as structured. You get a call and 2 days later you'd be racing off somewhere. And that was just the best journey ever.
Yeah.
Just most incredible times, but when you start having kids, that starts to be a... I guess I grew to a point where I wanted structure,
Of course,
You can be tiresome of not having total control yourself,
For sure. It's a great answer.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so Jase, thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure having you. Where could we just follow a bit of your work or the company, if you want to mention?
Yeah.
So that people can really dive in and look what you guys are doing in a bit more advanced way, of course.
Yeah. So Oyster Life is our company.
Yeah.
And we're a management company of several oyster farms.
Yeah.
It's all about the story and people following the journey. So you can go to oysterlifemanagement.com.
Yes.
But the Instagram is really a daily update.
All right.
So I think that's oysterlifemgmt. MGMT.
We'll put it down. We'll write it down, no worries.
And from there, you can follow our other journeys. There's a marketing company, Signature Oysters, which pools the best farmers in Australia to send to restaurants.
All right.
That's my brother-in-law's.
Signature Oysters, yeah.
And then also a phone app, which is kind of going global at the moment, called Smart Oysters, which allows you to manage an oyster farm. If you imagine how many oysters go through the hands of different sizes and different year groups. So you can find links for that through Oyster Life as well. Yeah.
Would be an interesting topic also to speak about.
Yeah.
I'll leave that.
Cool.
Perfect. Well, guys, thank you very much for your time, Mr. Jase.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
Good man.
Thanks for having me also here.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And well, leave the comments below if you have any questions. We'll probably be able to get Jase to answer them. And
Yep.
All right.
Easy.
Have a good day, guys.
Yoo-hoo.